Hello, my name is Dan Nagle. I'm a partner at BDO. I'm also market leader for the Waterloo region, and I sit on the board of directors for BDO. Today, I'm going to be answering questions for BDO Q&A. First question, walk us through your career journey. What made you go into accounting and consulting? So that journey starts back to when I started at Wilfrid Laurier. I was getting close to graduation and had no idea what I was going to do with this economics degree. So I remember talking to my dad and asking him what he thought, and his advice was that I get into accounting. His reasoning was that I was pretty sociable. I loved to network with people, get out there in the community, and thought that accountants with the personality effectively would do well in the professions. I articled at a Big Four and was there for a couple of years, and then made the transition over to BDO. Next question. After almost 20 years at BDO, what has kept you here? What's kept me here is ultimately the people. It was around when I got promoted to manager that I started really questioning what my career path was going to be. At that point in time, at manager level, I was starting to build my network, and I was approached by a bank, and they asked if I would consider taking on a role there. I went to my mentor at the time, who was a partner, and asked him for his feedback and opinion. He helped me understand what it was like to be a partner and what that career path could look like if I chose not to go the banking route, but to go down the partner path. I thought if I can mold myself into someone who is meeting with clients, well networked in the community, meeting new people, bringing in new business, the competitive aspect of bringing in new business was very attractive to me. Once I got to partner, that's where things really hit home for me. I also really enjoy the business development aspect, being out in the community, meeting leaders of the community, becoming a leader myself in the community and someone that people look to and trust. I've taken on a role where I make sure that I am mentoring other staff and paying that forward and helping them with their career progression. Those things are extremely rewarding. What is the secret to becoming your clients' most trusted advisors? Well, the answer is in the question. You need to build trust with your client. To do that takes a significant amount of time, and I think that people can sometimes underestimate that trust is not built overnight, it's built over time. I had a lunch with the CFO, client CFO yesterday, and she wanted to have lunch, and I thought the meeting was a business-related meeting. The meeting was actually about she's looking to grow her personal brand, and to do that, she's thinking of joining a few boards. She wants to get involved in the community. She had some ideas that she wanted to spitball with me, and that's what we talked about for 2 hours. That's how you know you're a trusted advisor. Next question. You've played sports your whole life, from basketball to golf and now boxing. What lessons from sports most influence how you prepare for clients? Well, I take my lessons mostly not from golf, but from basketball. Basketball being a very important team sport. When I first started playing, and I was younger, I always thought I was the best person on the floor, and a lot of people called me the black hole, because I was a ball hog. The problem with that was I'd score a lot of points, but our team lost a lot of games. So as I became more senior playing basketball, I started to involve my teammates. I started to become a leader, and I did that by sharing the ball, drawing up plays, involving my teammates, and making sure that everyone showed up at game time. That's quite relevant to how we show up at BDO. It's important to avoid the lone wolf mentality. I've always found that when I show up to a large prospect meeting, if I do that on my own, I am not as strong as I can be with the team. The full power of BDO is quite substantial, and when you involve the right service lines, you involve the right people with industry knowledge, you're showing up as a much stronger team. It's critical to servicing our clients. It's ultimately how we move to a trusted advisor role, and you can't do that on your own. Doing more together, to me, is involving people that you know and trust within the BDO network and bringing them to the client and not hesitating to do that. You're currently on the BDO board. How has your role on the board shaped the way you think about long-term strategy and firm growth? When I first started on the board, I found, without realizing, that I had a very operational mindset. I showed up to board meetings and would often ask operational questions. After getting called out several times by a few of the board members that I was too operational, it helped me shift my mindset to a more strategic lens, looking at more macro issues. Really what matters to clients and what matters on the board is the macro level issues, the things that are going to drive value in a strategic sense, looking at time horizons of not just days or weeks or months, but looking at time horizons of years and the decisions you're making now. How do those decisions impact what's going to happen in the next 1 to 5 years? That forces you to be in a very strategic mindset. What is the best career advice you ever received? And what advice do you give out most often? So the best career advice I've ever received was to grow your network, internally and externally. I received that advice when I was a senior accountant, which is when I first joined BDO, but I have a different view or a different lens on that now. It's important to grow your network. If you look at how quickly technology is advancing, what's happening with AI, the one thing I don't see how AI can replace is your network. So it's critical to grow that piece out. There's always going to be a component where human trust and human interactions are vital, and to have as many interactions as possible, you need to have a network. A lot of your value will come from your network. What excites you most about BDO's future and your role in it? What excites me most about BDO's future is the new vision that we have. If I look back to how I built my book of business, I was made partner January 2007. And after my first year, one of the first things I did was I did an exercise where I looked at all my client groups and I looked at how many hours I was spending on each group, and I compared that to the revenue that was being driven from each group. It highlighted to me that I was generating much more revenue per hour for every hour of time I was putting into a large client group. What I've seen over the past few years is a major shift in strategic direction towards these types of clients. The types of clients being sophisticated, complex, that care about our services, that trust the advice that we get. This is to me the best way we could grow the firm. It's impossible to have 1,000 great relationships. It's easy to have 15 to 20 very good relationships. And when you have these relationships, what you end up doing is you end up building trust. That's all the questions. Thanks for listening. Excited about doing more together.